Welcome to part two of painting this evening landscape. Now, here I'm making a little bit of a change. I've decided that I'd prefer to have this tree in the foreground and the one that was in the foreground behind. So once you're in the studio, you can make that kind of structural change, what you think will work best to have a good composition. I'm applying my brush now with, I'm applying my paint now with a liner brush, a very soft liner brush, and I'm just developing the texture. I'm close enough with this foreground tree to have texture on it. You won't see a lot of texture in the background, particularly because they're an evening scene and you've got a very soft lighting. I'm using a good range of earth colours here, contrast of shade, light and shade, contrast of colour in the earth tones. And my cats are going a little bit berserk at the moment. I've now got two of them jumping around me, all trying to tell me it's supper time. I just hope they can just be patient and wait. You're more important right now. Okay, you got that bit of wiggle is from my cats bouncing around. Now I'm using the titanium white and a little bit of lemon yellow, and I'm putting in the highlights, the catch lights from the evening scene. Because the sun's right at the very back of this scene, I'll have light hitting both sides of my trees. That's why I think the evening scene is a lovely one for beginners to have a go at. It's just very forgiving. As I said, you don't have to worry about a great deal of detail in the background. It's just a hint, a suggestion of something going on back there, and your main work is in the foreground. If you are doing the full tutorial membership, the monthly membership, then take a photograph of your painting after you've completed this stage of the lesson and send it to me via whatever method we're using. I'll have contacted you to let you know. And you can also include any questions, and I'll do my best to answer and constructively critique your work. Now, that's just part of the full monthly ongoing membership. I also have these lessons available as courses, which don't include constructive critique, and sometimes as little mini courses. I strive to have lessons at various levels so that the tuition is affordable for all of you. Now, what I'm doing at the moment is just putting in those distant trees, and I'm blending now the contour lines onto a tree to give it a three-dimensional effect, to make it appear that that tree is curved. They're just little subtle curving lines that I'm putting that give a feeling that the tree is coming partly towards you or bending away from you, that it makes it look like the branch isn't just going straight up into the air, but there's that curvature there. So just little gradual contour lines, not too sharp, have them more visible in the foreground and less visible in the background, and you're getting that feeling of three dimension. It's very important to create three dimension into the painting. Again, using those strongest tones, strongest colours in the foreground will help you achieve that feeling of aerial perspective. And of course, by making things larger in the foreground, you've got the lineal perspective. It's not necessary to give you a list of exact colours. It's better to have the quality of the paint than worry about the precise colour that I'm using. Burnt sienna and burnt umber are very popular browns. One is a red brown tone and one is more of a dark yellow brown tone. and they're quite popular. But it does not have to be those. And again, you can mix your browns. If you put green, a dark green and a dark red together, that will give you a brown tone if you use it in the right proportion. So if you're wanting a red brown, you would add more red. If you're wanting a more yellow toned brown, then you're adding a little bit more of the dark yellows to your mixture. So it's not that difficult to learn how to mix. You're wanting really dark, almost blackish tones, you might use a very, very dark brown, and you might mix it with ultramarine blue, a very dark blue, and that will give you an almost blackish tone. You could also use an extremely dark green and red of the very darkest tones that you have, and again you can get an almost black looking tone. So you can work without using black, although there's nothing wrong with using black if you wish to. I'm not dogmatic about what you have to use. You use what you've got, and just try to use quality because you will find it a lot easier to paint. They say a bad workman blames his tools, but really, I can't do a great job with poor quality tools, and I'm a professional artist, so I don't expect a student to be able to do a good job with poor quality equipment. The I don't recommend that students buy student grade paint. In fact, I'm inclined to think that any teacher who's telling their students to go out and buy student grade paint isn't really um, wanting to teach, they're wanting to keep you a student. I want to teach, I want to help you get where you want to be as a professional or as a hobby artist. I work with a disposable palette. There's nothing wrong with using timber palettes, and I worked with a timber palette for decades. I changed to a disposable. I find it a lot easier these days not to have to clean the palette. And I've used a slightly grey palette because it's not easy to check your lights if you're working on a white palette. If you're working on a greyed back palette, it's a lot easier to check your light and shades. I've got a dipper there and I have a little bit of stand oil, which is a thicker linseed oil. And I've probably only needed to dip into it once because of the quality of the paint that I'm working with. If you're using student grade paint, you may need to use the medium more often.